Okay, we go ahead with the next presentation. My name is Daniel Torsson, analyst at ABG, and we are covering IT and tech companies. We released an initiation on Net Insight earlier this week, so the most recent company on the research platform. And today we have Anders Harrison, CEO of the company, who will present Net Insight for 20 minutes, and then we'll do 5 minutes Q&A. So go ahead, Anders.
Thank you. Okay. So it's early morning in the American West Coast. It's February 2019, and early morning. Millions of families are gathering in front of their TV sets. They're drinking the morning coffee, they're having breakfast, and they're all very excited because they're all going to watch Lindsey Vonn go down in her last downhill race in her career. It's Åre Downhill World Championships. So 3, 2, 1, she's out of the gates, and suddenly all screens in the US go black. Of course they didn't. Just kidding. They cannot go black, right? They cannot go black, and they didn't. Up here we have a whole bunch of Net Insight's customers. They are broadcasters. They have paid billions of dollars to the rights to send live sports. Everything from the downhill race in Åre, the World Championships in cricket, soccer, anything. Do you think they need to be certain that what they broadcast to us viewers got to be perfect? Of course. That's why they should, and many of them do, work with Net Insight. So my name is Anders Harrison, and I'm the CEO of the company. I'm the interim CEO. The company has been in business for 20 plus years. We invest about 35% of sales in R&D, and we have logos in our customer base that are well known. We are a media tech company. We develop and sell tech solutions for the media industry, and we have 3 business units. And you have them up here. So I'm starting at the right-hand side. A fairly young business unit is called Streaming Solutions. And it's this business unit there's been a lot of noise about in the press and a lot of speculations on how quickly we will commercialize this. We've said that we are in a very interesting period when trying to commercialize this business. And we will come back and report to you on how that's going in the Q1 report in 2020. So I'm not going to spend much time on this business unit today because I have much more to say than that we're working hard on commercializing Streaming Solutions. It's fairly small, and you can see that the operating margin is clearly negative. The second business unit we have is called Resource Optimization. It's a company we acquired in 2015 in the US called Schedule. We are now modernizing the technology platform. We're investing a lot in that. Resource Optimization's got a very stable customer base, very well-known logos. We have also said that how Net Insight is now developing, our strategy is kind of leaving Resource Optimization a little bit on the side, and it's not coming together, it's diverting a little bit. So we are reevaluating our strategy here, and we've even said in the Q3 report that the divestiture may be the way forward. And we also said that we will come back in the annual report and let you know what we're doing here. Fairly large, however, negative margin. So what I want to spend time on today is the business unit called Media Networks. And you can see that's a lion part of our revenues, and it's got an operating margin at around 20%. So this business unit operates, let me see, in an arena which is very interesting. Live sports. Not many people understand what's going on here, but what I want to show you a few examples. If you look at the live sports hours produced and transported between the Sochi 2014 and Pyongyang in 2018, the number of hours produced grew by 38%. It seems like we, who are watching, have an enormous appetite for live sports. And also, go back in time and you remember the Champions League quarterfinals, and you were happy if you could watch one. Now you want to watch all four at the same time and switch between channels. So our appetite is just skyrocketing, and this is not stopping. Another factor which is very interesting in the media networks business is that when we talk about standard definition, that's how we remember it from our childhood. We're now watching high definition. The next step will be a resolution called 4K, and then eventually we'll end up at 8K. What that means is that the transported signals will grow by a factor of 175 from standard definition to ultra to 8K. So that puts a lot of requirement on the network. And you can imagine when we're going from here to here to here, how that's going to stress the networks. Another thing that's going on in the marketplace is that previously there was one production, one feed from a venue, from like a Friends Arena, what have you, one feed. Now we have up to 80 feeds. And these feeds are, it's 80 times what it was. So if you put these two together, you understand that not everyone can satisfy the broadcasters and deliver a product and the services that they are extremely satisfied with. And this is what Net Insight does. Another way to look at it, and this is a little bit of an eye chart, so I'm going to try to explain it to you. Our core business, you see, production is what's made on the venue, on the arena. You see the buses outside of the arena where people sit and produce the event. Then it goes to the contribution network, which is our core business, has always been our core business, and that's what we're good at. And then further on out to us viewers here, where we are not really present. In the past, there was an on-site production where everything was produced at the venue, and then over a media network, which was a Net Insight media network, it was transported and then eventually ended up with the viewer. What we are doing now is that instead of separate networks, we're now using internet. That's the next step. So we're now using internet, standard technology IP, which is important to us. Also, something new is introduced, which is called remote production. Means that at the venue, there are cameras and people, but all the feeds from those cameras go to a central location. And that central location can be just about anywhere in the world if they use Net Insight. And that's about cost. You can imagine having to send tons of people, buses, production people up to a venue in the mountains. That's very costly. Instead, you have much less OPEX. You use the network and you sit here at SVT in Stockholm and do all the production. So this is what we call remote production, and the players here are moving over to the left-hand side. So broadcasters are not just doing service providers and broadcasters not just doing production, contribution, but they're also moving into remote production. And I'm going to give you an example. But before I do that, we're talking about the future. And what the future holds for us is that we're moving to cloud solutions. You hear everyone talk about cloud. And eventually, everything will move to the cloud. And I will come back to that later on, that deliver the service through cloud is an obvious future for us. And we actually, with a few projects, we're already there. So here we're back to Åre in 2019. So if you talk to Adde Granberg, who's the CTO at SVT, he produced the world's largest remote production event in February 2019. And for us who was just watching it, it seemed to be like a no-brainer. This is just, well, like any other broadcast. But this was a big, big thing in the media world. 80 cameras around Lindsey Vonn. A Nimbra solution, a Nimbra network, who transported the signals from these 80 cameras to SVT på Gärdet in Stockholm, where the production team were sitting and producing the entire event. Not on site in Åre, but in Stockholm. Nothing can go wrong here, because if it goes wrong, you smoke. So that's why Adde Granberg worked with Net Insight. He produced over 700 hours of live TV to over 1 billion viewers around the world. But not only that, live sport is of course the obvious, where we would like to, or where we are focusing. But not only that, these capabilities are also being used by enterprises. And here I'm just showing you one example. We're working with LinkedIn, and as you can see here, they've had 4 sites, 3 in the US, where Sunnyvale, Mountain View, and New York, where they've done production, operations, and editorial in different places. With the Nimbra network, or with Net Insight, they can do it seamlessly and with high quality and much lower cost. They can produce, record, edit anywhere, and send it to any place at any office in the world. So I think LinkedIn seemed to be very excited about what we're doing together. So this is a typical enterprise solution where we're using the same technology. I just said that everything will move to the cloud. And cloud is something many people are talking about in our industry as something for the future. But we have already launched our first products. And the first product here is called Nimbra Edge. We're using all our capabilities and technologies we got. It's cloud software based. And we have a very good uptake and interest from both existing and new customers. And this also introduces a new business model for Net Insight Media Networks, where we're talking about pay-per-use. It's a recurring revenue model, and as you know, software as a service. So this product is the first one we have launched, and we will most likely see many more of our products go this way going forward. To end, I'd like to, the way I think you should look at Net Insight now is that we are a company with a lot of very well-known customers. And you saw them on the first page. Broadcasters who, the large ones have their own networks, and the smaller ones, they use service providers. And both the service providers and the broadcasters should be or are already our customers. So a very attractive client list. I would say that spending 35% of our sales in R&D is promising for the future, because we want to make sure that we're on the leading edge. And we're talking about many new technologies that we are implementing into our products. Everything will go over the internet, remote production, other technologies that are important, and we are really investing a lot of our sales into R&D. And I think that the financial profile of the company is also very interesting. Look at our gross margins. They are very high in the media networks. And for the first time in Q3, we did segment reporting, so you can analyze it by yourselves. And media networks is a very interesting business to us because of its financial model. And I would say is that media networks and Net Insight. Well, why should you follow it? Well, I think you should both follow, analyze, and invest in Net Insight, because this is what I call a scalable business model. So thank you for listening, and I'm done.
Yes, thank you very much, Anders. A great presentation. A few questions regarding the SVT case. Can you describe how the revenue model was for Net Insight? How did you capitalize on that over time? Was it a one-time? How does it work?
In this case, it was the first attempt to produce remotely such a large event. So we have not, at this point in time, not introduced any recurring revenue model. So this was a traditional business for us. So it was not delivered from the cloud. It was the old model with our hardware products. So
basically a one-time hardware sales,
yeah,
a few products up in order, a few products.
Yeah, and services and everything to it. It was not a cloud delivery.
Okay. And the revenue mix today is roughly 1/3 hardware, software, support and maintenance. How should we think about it in 3 years' time, given edge, given that the streaming solutions may pick up, etc.? What will the mix be?
I think you should expect to see a lot more recurring revenue, a lot more software as a service, a lot more predictability, hence software as a service, and a lot less hardware, more cloud solutions. So this is where we're going. And then, of course, introducing all these new technologies that we don't even know the name of, but they are coming along, and we make sure that we're on the leading edge, implementing all standards that are around the corner, and they are coming, because that's what we need to do to stay competitive.
Usually some say that the media industry is very conservative and slow moving. Is that something you agree on, or is that actually shifting now with more live content and a higher pressure on broadcasters? And are you addressing that field?
Yeah, it has in the past been very conservative, because it's been a very stable business model for them. Now we see the media industry moving both upside down, up, down, left, right. I mean, Telia, TV4. You can see all the kinds of things happening where the I would call the landscape is changing. I think that this is not over yet. We are seeing new business models emerge, acquisitions, mergers, and where it's going to end up and what it's going to look like, I think no one really knows. But we are trying to follow as close as possible in our contacts with our large customers to really support them in their effort to stay competitive and do the right thing for their company.
A big chunk of your client base today are service providers and broadcasters, but we see that global major tech players are spending more and more money on content acquisitions. Are you working with them as a client as well?
Yeah,
Netflix, Amazon?
That's one of the examples. Like Amazon going to do Thursday Night Football, Facebook is going to broadcast what have you, and new players are coming into play here, and they are traditionally not our customers, and of course we are talking to them. We want to be there when they are building their networks or when they are making acquisitions that shifts the business model, and they may need to work with us. So yes.
And you think that you have a product portfolio that addresses their needs?
Absolutely.
We have talked a lot about media networks and Nimbra. It's 90% of revenues today, but I think we have to touch upon a little bit on the streaming solutions and the SAI product here.
I expected that.
Can you just explain how it works, what it is and how it works, because we haven't really talked about it yet.
Oh, well, I'm not going to go into the technical detail how we deliver it, but you as a client, if you were a client of a streaming solution service, you could sit back in your couch and, for instance, watch a football game, and you could have up, let's say, 8 to 10 different views on your iPad, up small screens, and you could say, I want to follow Lindelöf in Manchester United, follow him. And then you could say, I want to see the goalkeeper. I want to know exactly what's going on at Manchester United's goal. And you can have many different screens up at the same time, because there's so many feeds, so many cameras. I mean, for instance, if I was watching a football game from LA, I would put one of my screens on Zlatan. I want to see where he is, what he does. If you were sending a golf game, you know who play golf, you know that you only get to see the leaders, those who lead the game, and the guys who are behind, you never see them. But really, you would probably like to follow Henrik Stenson full time. And you could have one screen up, and then you can move the screens around and start and stop in a very seamless way. And that's really what streaming service does. And I'm talking about that feed could be delivered to you over Wi-Fi, over 4 or 5G, or any media with absolute synchronicity. So it will be not like it's a delay of 15, 20, 30 seconds. It's absolute synchronized.
So the main competitive advantage is basically higher quality and lower latency.
Absolutely, no latency.
We haven't seen a huge uptick of the product so far in the last 3 years since you first innovated it and presented it. Now you have signed a Fortune 500 client for next year.
Yep.
But this year you had a Swedish client, Primetime. They use it in a live quiz app.
Yep.
Do you think the potential is biggest in these terms of categories or in the live sport category going forward?
Well, personally, I think the live sport category is number one.
Okay. And you are doing a strategic review on Schedule. You will probably need, or you'll probably like to invest more in SAI and the streaming solutions.
Yeah.
How should we think about Net Insight as an investment for the next 12 to 18 months? With regards to that the company may differ and change over the coming year.
Yeah. Well, you should think of it like at the moment, we don't need to raise any more capital. We think we're fine here. You will see us. Well, I cannot comment yet on the two small business units. However, we will invest more in media networks. So you will see us accelerating the plans for media networks, and we should see a lot more growth in media networks than we've seen in the past.
Okay. I think we stop there. We had 5-6 minutes of Q&A. And we thank Anders and Net Insight.
Thank you.